What do people think about wokeness here, and do you see it anywhere?
It is growing. The growing of woke culture is part of the reason why we stumbled upon you. My partner, his name is Awe, he was talking about, it's like, yo, on these message boards, people were talking about what's called 正式正确, which is Chinese for PC culture, which is another term for woke. Because the culture is like, you know, if you're fat, we call you the fat guy over there. Or even me, it's like, I'm not Sona, I'm the black guy. Like, the black guy over there. It's like, and now it's changed to like, the guy with dark skin color. You have to say it like that. And even in workplaces, in terms of the, I guess, over-assertion of women's rights and in certain situations, even forcing guys to go through menstrual simulation periods to understand, to have empathy.
Wait, what? What is it? Menstrual simulation?
So it started in Japan. They have like a device they created called the perionoid. We're gonna start in Japan and come to Taiwan. So in Japan, women are allowed, I think, a certain amount of days of menstrual leave, but it's unpaid. And they think that's not fair. So they came up with a device called the perionoid, which guys can strap on to this area here, and it will randomly create cramps for them to understand what women are going through.
I'm gonna read one of those. I'm gonna read one of those. Have you been following anything that's been going on in the US, or are you just Taiwan-centric right now?
I've been following a little bit.
I mean, how do you feel about what's happening to the country now?
I think it's really, really sad. I mean, I guess politically was, for the most part, liberal Democrat. Like, I made my first career was DJing and playing in gay and lesbian clubs. And now I look at even the people who I came up with in that community, it's like, yo, what are y'all doing? You guys finally have a leg up, but now you're becoming the very people that used to oppress you. You're becoming the oppressor.
What are reasons to be optimistic? I don't know, as an outsider.
Well, first of all, I look at America as a giant social experiment. For all intents and purposes, what I see is like we really shouldn't exist. I mean, we have different people come from all different places, different languages, different cultures come together, and somehow we managed to, up until now, I guess, to coexist. And we've done it for quite some time now. And we've been, like, I guess, an inspiration for many different countries around the world.
I think that should give us courage, exposure to other people's perspectives.
Moving us in a good direction.
Sona, welcome to Conversations with Peter Boghossian.
Thank you for having me.
Want to have this conversation for a long time, so thanks. So we're in Taiwan, and you're in Taiwan, and you've been here how long? And you speak fluent Mandarin and Taiwanese, which blows my mind.
I've been here 17 years. My Chinese is pretty fluent. My Taiwanese is getting there. And since I just became a dual national, like, I'm trying to work hard to actually step it up, so yeah.
And so you have a really popular YouTube channel. So tell us about yourself. What do you do here?
Okay, so I have essentially 3 businesses. I have a couple of franchises of parkour gyms. I have a YouTube channel, and I also host a TV show on MTV.
Wow. Okay. And so you're married to a Taiwanese woman.
Yes.
Do you speak Taiwanese in the home?
Yeah, because she doesn't speak English, so for the most part, we speak Chinese and Taiwanese.
So she speaks Chinese. And do you have kids?
One on the way, in a month, actually.
Oh, congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So you're going to speak English, I assume, to the kid, and she's going to speak Taiwanese and Mandarin?
I don't know how that's going to work, just because the majority of my life here, I don't really speak a lot of English. So I will have to consciously make the effort to, like, speak English to my kid, just because my environment, like, I really don't speak. Like, this is the most English I've spoken in a while.
Really?
I mean, obviously we have our channel, and I speak a lot of English for people who want to learn English, but for the most part, my daily life is I mostly speak Chinese. So It's kind of, yeah.
So one thing that I'm fascinated by, so we interviewed Blockade, the rapper, and I've been told in no uncertain terms that once I put the videos out that we're making here, I will be banned from China.
Yes, or at least blacklisted.
So can you tell me about that?
So the way it works is if you are very publicly outspoken, or you give platforms to people who are publicly outspoken against China or the CCP, for the most part, you're going to be put on a list. They may notify you, they may not, but for what you'll notice is that you'll see an uptick in suspicious phishing attempts on your emails. They'll ask you, you'll get these weird notifications on if you have Instagram or YouTube to do your two-factor authentication. Like they're coming at you because that's what they do. When, at least from my opinion, especially with YouTube, for the most part, the CCP runs the internet. They have a Discord group, and what they do is they go through and they watch channels. And if they see a channel and say like, hey, Blockade is on Peter Boghossian's channel, who's this guy? And then you'll see in the group, they'll just pull up. They'll start going through all of your information, finding you and putting pictures of who you've been seen with, who you're associated with, and then they'll make a decision on whether or not they want to come after your channel. And once they make that decision, they'll systematically downvote your channel. They will attack your channel in the comments. They'll report your channel saying that it's abusing the terms of service for YouTube. And eventually, the worst case scenario is maybe you get demonetized or maybe you get a strike. And in most cases, they kind of suppresses your viewership. So even like for us, we have about just over 500,000 subscribers. But after we got into a little conflict with someone, like our views dropped to maybe, our views average maybe 15,000 per episode.
And the reason, because the Chinese, they do what? What is the government, like how do they do that?
So they have a group of people called Xiaofenhong, and Xiaofenhong stands for Little Pink. And pretty much they do the bidding of the CCP on the internet. So anytime anyone says anything about China they feel is offensive or they don't like, they have a group, and we're talking groups all over China, even in the West. And what they do is they unite on servers like Discord, on different message boards, and they say, go after that channel. And you'll just see, we call it dislike bomb. And after you upload this video, you'll see it. People will attack you from every which angle they can. They'll have
to join the queue.
Huh?
They'll have to join the queue.
Yeah.
I got a lot of people.
So you're no stranger to it. And I think it's not that bad. You have to be more careful about how you move. Like for me, I don't even follow my wife on Instagram.
Oh, you mean like, because I've been told I shouldn't even go to the Hong Kong airport. Like I've been told
I won't even allow my mom to go. When she visits, I always have her fly to Japan. Just out of safety reasons. Because for our names are very distinguishable on the internet. You Google and there's only one. So it's really easy to find out like who's connected to me. Yeah.
I don't know who these people think they are. Who do these people think they are?
Well, this is from my perspective, just from my experience, but their whole idea is that you do not insult China in any form. If you say anything even remotely, let's say, bad about the CCP or about China as a country, we take it as an insult and we'll come for you. Because the whole thing is we have numbers. We have all these numbers. It's like a kind of gang mentality. It's like, we got all this, what do you got? And they use their numbers to their advantage on the internet. Although in real life, it doesn't really work out too well. I'm sure if you've seen with the piano guy, that happened a month ago.
Tell us about that real quick.
So what's his name? Brendan Kavanaugh. He was playing the piano. I think he's like a YouTuber, and he was doing the thing at I forgot the station in London, or somewhere near London. And there were a group of Chinese YouTubers and also someone who turned out to be, I think, had pretty close ties with the CCP and the spy end of things. And he was just doing his thing, and one of the presenters came over and started dancing with him, and they even had someone to play the piano. But after a while, one guy came over and said, "Hey, can you not take our image? Can you remove all the footage of our face, because we are not allowed to have our face on anyone else's social media," which makes no sense because you guys walked over there, you approached him, you danced with him. So then how are you gonna be in someone else's country, hold up your flag, and then tell someone else what to do?
Yeah.
But for them, that's standard operating procedure. Like in China, that's how it works. Like if someone tells you something and you talk back, that's your ass. They will ruin you.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Okay, so we're going to release these videos. I'm not going to be able to go to China. They're going to go after the channel. And I'm sure all the people who hate me anyway think this is going to be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
They're going to love this and CCP. Okay, so let's go back to you now. So you've been here for a long time. You speak fluent Mandarin. You speak fluent Taiwanese. I have so many things to ask you about. Okay. So you must like it here.
I do. This is my home now, permanently.
What do you like about this place? What made you stay here?
Well, originally I'm from Dallas, Texas. Grew up in the South. So the number one thing is just safety. Like you can walk out in the middle of the night.
Just like where Reed lives in LA.
You're not even on Hoover Street, are you?
You should see where Reed lives. Yeah.
But yeah, you can walk anywhere at any time of the night, and if anyone approaches you, it's to ask you, "Are you lost?" And that's it. Like this is one of the lowest crime rates in the world. The most thing you have to worry about in terms of safety, as most people know, is walking across the street because the traffic here is insane. Yeah. But they're working on it. But other than that, like the murder rate is low, theft, all that. I've had people chase me because I dropped my wallet. They've chased me down the street. It's like, "Excuse me, sir, you dropped your wallet." You know what I mean? So that, for me, is a number one factor, is that just safety. And the number two, the people. The people are very welcoming. They're very hospitable.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Oh my God, you have no idea. Like people who are watching, I mean, we can talk all we want, but unless you actually come and you see for yourself, you don't really understand.
And are you a foodie? Do you love food here?
I do love food. I love pretty much all types of food, especially Taiwanese food. And I love the most dangerous part, which is the night market food, which is not the most healthy, but it's actually quite good.
Yeah, and the hot pot.
Oh, yes.
God, I went to a wet market the other day. Oh my God.
Man, you must have.
I'm a sushi fanatic. I love fish. I love eating all kinds of tripe is the only thing I don't eat. But I went to this wet market and they were like literally pulling the fish.
Yep.
So all these, and then just chop right there. I was eating it. It was unbelievable. And it was so cheap. I couldn't believe it.
And you had this in Taipei, right?
I had this in Taipei.
Oh man, wait till you go down south, even go east. Like it's a completely different story. Like you're gonna go east or you're going down south, you're gonna have some food, you're gonna come back to Taipei and be like, it's good, but
really?
Because it's just different level.
Yeah, we need to do that. I don't know how I'm gonna be able to do that because we need to leave soon, but this has been an extraordinary experience for me.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, the cleanliness blows my mind. It's clean, like you said, I completely agree. It's safe, the feeling is great. The people are very welcoming and very kind to me, and we go to the places every day, and it is difficult that my Mandarin isn't too good.
There are a lot of people who live here for years though, and don't really speak it that well, and they still get around okay.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. It's hard though. It's hard. Like basic little things are hard, but I find this place is absolutely extraordinary to me. It's extraordinary on so many. And if you're open to the experience, the sense,
yes,
but you have to really kind of come out of your like if you're really open to it, it will. If you're open to receive, it will give you goodness.
I had this talk. My mother is almost 70 now.
Yeah.
And she came for the first time about a year and a half ago. And I told her, I was like, look, things are going to be different. People are going to stare at you, but it's just because you're new. They don't know the pace of life. I mean, she's lived in McGregor pretty much for the majority of her life. Yeah. So she's never left the country. This is her first time. When she came, like within 2 days, she was like already planning like her next visit.
Wow.
You know what I mean? She was completely just baffled by how, like you said, how clean everything is, how nice people are.
Yeah, and to me, this is a little weird to tell you, but to me, well, not after our initial conversation when you walked in, but I am fascinated by how people treat the commons. It's so interesting to me when we go read and I go around the world. One of the first things I do is I look in public bathrooms, public restrooms, and see it. The way these people treat their commons, they're so clean.
Yeah.
There's not vandalized. No one's committing social justice on the ground.
Nope.
They're clean. They're organized. They're safe. There's like paper towels there. It's unbelievable.
And the craziest part is like at the MRT station, the people who work there, majority of them are volunteers. There are people who are retired. I know because my father-in-law is a volunteer, and they have nothing to do. They're like, I just want to sit at home and do nothing. So they go and they volunteer.
Yeah, I got lost the other day on the train, and I went up to this cop, and I said, hello. And the cop literally walked me.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
I'll tell you a story. I was standing across the street waiting to go across the zebra crossing. And I was looking around. I've been here 4 or 5 years at the time. And I didn't want to wait. This little green man that
he gets faster as the time goes on.
And I didn't want to wait. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. So I walked across, and there were 2 police officers standing across the street. And I could hear them because they didn't know I spoke Chinese. So they're sitting there like, hey, the foreigner, he's walking across the street illegally. Should we say something? He's like, I don't speak English. I don't know what to say to him. He's like, you go say something. Say hello or how are you or something like that. Just let him know he can't walk across the street. And the 2 police officers who are people of authority are having a conversation about who should tell the guy who's breaking the law that he's breaking the law.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. This is just such a remarkable place. I'm so bummed that we have to limit our time here, but okay.
Right.
So let me ask you a question. So I've really come to love this place so much, and I'm enamored with it. And I'm also, I don't want to say heartbroken, but I'm also super sad about the potential of a blockade or an invasion.
Oh.
And how likely is that? What would that look like? Do you ever think about these things? Do people talk about it?
Well, my family calls me about it every time it shows up on CNN. For us, I say us, meaning expats and the locals living here, we've been dealing with this for years. Like the flybys, the threats. For us, it's like, okay, if you're gonna do it, just do it. Like, The flybys have been constant for the past, as long as I've been
Tell
here,
me
17 years.
tell me about the flybys.
So what they do is China has their jets, they scramble their jets and they do like intimidation tactics. They fly around Tainan, around the southern tip of Taiwan.
Yeah.
And they just try to intimidate. They try to break, they have like I believe like a boundary line where they're not supposed to cross into airspace.
Yeah.
And what they do is they get just close enough and then they cause the Taiwanese jets to scramble, and it's supposed to be an intimidation tactic of like, hey, can't touch this. Like literally like we're coming through and we can do whatever we want. But they've been doing it for the past 20 years.
They're thugs.
Yeah, pretty much. So for us, it's like, oh, okay. Like even my friends who were hardcore, like pro-Taiwan Taiwanese, are like, yeah, if they invade, they can try. Good luck. I mean, logistically, it's going to be a hard thing just because of the way Taiwan is structured, and then of course the alliances, the mountains, and even the way they have it set up. I don't know the proper term. Just down south, they have the way it's set up for when if you want to beach, the place is extremely, extremely difficult, just because the topography is so harsh. So you have that, but then you also have the fact that Japan doesn't really like China all that much, and we've committed one way or the other. You have other countries who are kind of looking at China. The Philippines are kind of like, yo, you guys are really kind of getting on our nerves. So from the Taiwanese perspective, at least as it's been told to me, it's like the CCP has always operated with intimidation, but they don't actually do anything. They usually try to instigate or make you do something that causes them to react as a result.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of what you just said implies to invasion. What about just a blockade?
A blockade could be possible. I don't really know. I'm not as educated on how that works, so I won't speak too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, even then, I really think, at least from my perspective, I think that Taiwanese people are really good at persevering through the worst. So if there is a blockade and it ends up, kind of screwing up the economy, I think we'll figure a way out. Just because they went through martial law to not even having a democracy to now one of the leading democracies in the Asian world.
You know.
First place to ever legalize gay marriage. So I think in that regard, I really don't worry too much. If it actually happens, we figure it out. And that's literally what most of my Taiwanese friends and people in the military say, we'll figure it out. If they actually do it, we'll figure it out.
You know, it's interesting to me that nobody has a gun here.
No.
So there are no guns here. So, I mean, I go back and forth about thinking about the gun issue. You know, we have the Second Amendment. They don't have the Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
Europe obviously doesn't have the Second Amendment. And many Europeans, not only have they never fired a gun, they've never even seen a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people come to my home and, you know, Vivek Ramaswamy, the presidential candidate, has floated these ideas of basically, you know, give them a Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Or does it, and again, I realize this is a tricky question, but does it concern you both ways that there are no guns here? And like if there were guns here, it would be somewhat of a deterrent, I would imagine, for an invasion, but it would then also maybe people would the murder rate would go. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here.
Well, as a Texan,
Yeah.
I would prefer guns.
Yeah.
I would prefer everyone could exercise their Second Amendment rights, but I also understand that, you know, you can't copy and paste certain systems in different countries and cultures. But I don't think, at least from my experience of being here almost 20 years, that even if you had, let's say, like a Second Amendment or something where people were allowed to be armed, I don't think that the nature of the culture in here would allow for people to just go around and start shooting people and robbing. Now, I could be wrong.
That's my very, very brief time here. That's also my intuition, but I could be completely wrong about that.
Like there are guns here. Usually the gangsters have them. And in the places where the gangsters have them, there's a place called Taichung, which is a city kind of south of here on the west side of Taiwan. And that's considered like the gun capital of the country, right? All the gun violence happens there. But even then you're talking about like someone gets shot every month or so. You know what I mean? With gang violence, once a month. Compare that to LA or Dallas,
Chicago,
you know what I mean?
East St. Louis, Baltimore.
So these are people who have access to guns. They can get them illegally. They're in the trade of, you know, illegal activities. Even then, people get shot once a month. So I don't see it. But on the other side, I get why people might be apprehensive because they might think, hey, if you have a gun, people might exercise that right just because they have it, or abuse it rather.
So given that there's this existential threat, this looming existential threat, like the sword of Damocles is hanging over the whole island, wouldn't it then make sense to have a kind of Second Amendment here or to arm the citizenry?
I think it would. I think it's a very huge disservice to not have some sort of policy, at least like train them. If you don't want to give them guns, at least say, okay, look, everyone knows this threat is real. It could happen any moment. So once a week, everyone come to the rec center and we'll teach you, how to load, what a magazine is, how to do all those different things. At least teach them so that if things really go down, when we hand you a gun, you're not looking at it trying to figure out how it works.
And there is no compulsive military service here, right? There's no conscription.
There is. Everyone has mandatory military service.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes.
But not women, right?
No women, no. But I think there's been debates over whether or not that should change. In the past year, I think we did an episode on it, and people were like, hey, if we're going to be about equal rights, then shouldn't we allow them or assign conscription to them as well? So that's been a kind of a hot topic just around the election. They were talking about that.
So how frequently do people talk about a blockade or invasion? Is this like something that people think about? Is it?
Rarely. I mean, this obviously, again, I'm speaking from my experience, and the majority of my friends, my family, they're all Taiwanese. So when we talk about things, rarely. I mean, it's usually if it's on the news and it's like, oh yeah, that thing. Oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? But it's not like something that's on the forefront of everyone's minds. Now, if you're doing business, it's a different story. Because for people, I know friends who own nightclubs, they have different branches in Shanghai and Beijing and here as well. And for them, that hurts the bottom line. So they're concerned in terms of like the pocketbook. And some people, I know a lot of, there are some expats who are a little bit concerned. So they've, kind of made some contingency plans so that, okay, if something goes down, maybe I go to Japan or go to somewhere here. But as far as the locals, from my perspective, is they're just like, if it happens, fine, let's just do it and get it over with. Because you have to remember, these people have been terrorized for the better part of 2 decades. And at that point, you're like, if you're gonna do something, then do it. Otherwise, I gotta get back to work. I got kids to feed. That's pretty much the general consensus.
Yeah, that's just such a disheartening reality to me. It's such a bummer. The thriving, independent democracy, bustling capitalist system, such a decent people, hardworking, good people, to have to worry about that constantly, or at least have that threat hanging over you. It just seems to me to be just tyrants and thugs.
But I'd say, other than that, and maybe a few earthquakes, this place is good.
Yeah, no, it's great,
you know
right?
what I mean? Like, you have that looming threat, but in comparison to other places where, things are happening on a regular basis, I'd say that, yeah, for us, it's just life. It's like, okay, those people over there, they say they want to take us over. They say we're their brothers, right? Or we're their compatriots.
Yeah, that's how we do with our brothers. We take them over.
It's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah. So someone I do jujitsu with told me that there's some kind of visa that you can get, and like that it can extend your stay indefinitely if you're an American and you have a skill or something like that.
Oh yeah. So that's actually, I just became the 67th American to get dual nationality under what's called the high-level professionals visa. And that allows you, for the most part, if you want to be, up until about 5 years ago, it was extremely difficult to get any sort of citizenship without renouncing your original citizenship.
Oh, yeah.
I qualified for citizenship probably 10 years ago, but I wasn't going to renounce my U.S. citizenship. And at the time, I was under 35, which meant I would have had to go to the military. So
Under 35.
Huh?
Under 35.
Yeah, it's, I believe the cutoff date is, 37 is the cutoff date. For anyone who was born, I think, 1981 to 1985, 86, the cutoff date is 37.
Okay.
And then now it's shrunk.
Okay.
So at that point, I was like, well, I'll pass. And plus, I don't know, I wasn't too sure about, where I was going to end up permanently. But then because of the past couple of years, doing work with a television station, bilingual hosting, working with the president, that set me in that category of high-level senior professional.
Yeah, you work with the president of Taiwan.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I was the first non-Taiwanese national to host the national presidential concert. And I was also the first non-diplomatic foreigner to actually appear in a public service announcement and a commercial with the president. And this was back in July of last year. And then that, after that, it's like when they look at your qualifications, it's like, oh, you put the picture there and it's like a big mic drop, right? So at that point, I was able to get dual nationality without renouncing my American citizenship.
And all the time we've spoken and we've communicated, you've never said anything about you being black.
No.
And so is that just not an issue here in Taiwan, or what's that about?
It depends on what your perspective is. I can say because again, I grew up in the States and the South. So you're always very consciously aware, even when you're not, people remind you that what you look like. Huh. So coming here and bringing that here, my lens for the first couple of years was whenever people stare at me, it's like, well, you got a problem? What, you don't like me because I'm black? Or whenever I would go to like the service counter at Family Mart or 7-Eleven and people would freak out and I automatically assume it's racism when really, no, they're just freaked out because they don't know if they can speak English to you. So there was always that, and the curiosity. They look at your skin and for them, it's like, we can't comprehend that all of you looks like this. Like I've had kids walk up to me and go like, whoa, you know what I mean? So coming from the States where we are very, very racially like sensitive, that can mess with you. But if you can put that aside and actually make attempts to understand the culture and learn the language, you realize that they're not much different than us. And they're really just curious because for them, they're primarily a homogenous population. So for you, it's like completely different. They don't understand.
So once you start speaking Chinese, I mean, that must just blow
People freak out.
I mean, that just like completely blow their minds. Especially if you speak in Taiwanese, that must like super blow their minds.
People, whenever I used to hosted a show on MTV, which was like a hip hop competition show. And I was switching between English, Chinese, and Taiwanese. And when you looked at the comments, because it aired on television, but it was also on YouTube, most people thought that it was like a voice actor imposing their voice on mine. They didn't believe that it was actually me speaking and switching like seamlessly between the languages. So it wasn't until I think the presidential thing where people were like, oh, that's really him. Oh, that's really his voice.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just because not that many people, I guess, there's a lot of people who can speak it, but in terms of like a native, like with a native tone, the actual accent, and with the kind of cultural nuances, I don't think there's that many people.
God, that's pretty crazy, man. I mean, it just gives you access to a language, a culture, a people, traditions, a history.
And it messes with your mind. Like, even now, like I said, it's been a while since I spoke English, and I have to consciously like stop myself from trying to switch because some things are more convenient to say in Chinese than they are in English.
Oh, like what?
Like 比如说 is like for example, right? Like for example, I have to actually push the air out of my mouth and say for example, but 比如说 is like, it's easier because it just flows off.
Oh, interesting.
So some things it's just easier to switch or say in Chinese as opposed to English.
And you can express certain concepts, I'm told you can express certain concepts better in some languages than another.
Oh yeah, like something we got in trouble for is 活该. 活该 means you fucked around, you found out, and you deserved it.
God, I love that, Travis. I love
But if you say that, it's a very controversial term, and we got in trouble for it a while back because we used it it's a long story, but the thing is like those two characters, those two words imply all of that. Literally, like, you fucked around, the actions have consequences and you deserve what's coming to you is essentially what it means. Yeah.
You know, we somebody told us an awesome thing the other day for somebody who's I'm trying to think of what the politically correct term is. I can't think of it, but one who meets obstacles. And we just fell in love with that term. Like someone who's I'm trying to think of what the term. Oh, you weren't there. Nobody was there. It was someone who's mentally challenged.
Oh.
One who meets obstacles.
In Chinese?
Yeah.
Oh, 白痴, 应该是白痴.
Was that it? What was it?
Is it Chinese or Taiwanese?
Chinese.
Okay, I'm assuming
one
it's
who meets obstacles.
I'm assuming it's either 白痴 or 智障.
Yeah.
智障 is a little bit closer to the, I guess, professional word that, in French means to slow down.
Yeah.
白痴 is, I guess, a general term.
Someone who's just like challenged.
Yeah. Or that's what we call your friends. Like, I'm from the 80s, so we just say like,
right? Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It'll be channel. We'll get a strike if we say that word. But so a few things I want to ask about. So what should people? We've talked a little bit about it, but I want to really drill it home. Okay. What should people in the States know about Taiwan in two senses? First, what should they know about Taiwan non-politically, like culturally, maybe linguistically or gustatorially or what have you, any domains, any arenas there? And then what should they know about Taiwan politically?
Okay.
Why should they give a shit? Like, why should anybody care about Taiwan?
I would say, and again, this is just my own personal opinion from my perspective. I would say non-politically is, yes, there are a lot of cultural similarities between like Taiwan and China. Obviously the language, there's a history that's between the two. But when it comes to identity and when it comes to, I guess, a sense of really just identity, Taiwanese people are their own people. And they exist on their own separately from the mainland. And that's the way the majority of them see themselves. Like, yes, I'm ethically Chinese, But my identity, who I am, my cultural identity is Taiwanese, and that's a completely separate thing. And whenever I know, like, if you've never traveled or you don't know much about a certain country, you may look and say, okay, you guys are all the same, right? But you have to remember that there are certain people who are sensitive about that shit.
Yeah, I know.
Really sensitive about that. So it might be just like a joke to you to say, oh yeah, the Chinese guy, and the guy's Taiwanese. He's like, God, oh, sorry, God means fuck. Like, it's like, dude, for the longest time, they felt like they haven't been seen or they haven't been heard. They felt like that because of China's economic influence, that for the past 20, 25 years, everyone has kind of one China policy for the sake of economic growth. And Taiwan's kind of been like the redheaded stepchild that you push it into the back of the room. But they make the majority of the world's microchips. They have a lot of things.
Yeah.
NVIDIA, one of the largest tech companies on the forefront of AI technology, that's a Taiwanese guy who runs that shit. So for them, it's like we have a lot to offer, and we have offered a lot to the world. But you guys, you only now in the past couple of years have you been like, oh, Taiwan, oh yeah, that place. So I'd say, in short, just give them their props. Give them their props. And then politically, I guess I kind of intertwine those two.
Yeah, it's fine. Right? It's fine.
Politically, I would say that although, again, from my perspective, is that although they're in a kind of rough situation with China economically, and obviously there might be a war, you have to understand that the majority of Taiwanese people, from my perspective, feel like that, like, if no one comes to help us, we'll figure it out on our own. We would like it.
That's just an amazingly resilient attitude. I mean, so as you know, well, maybe you don't know because you've been out of the U.S. for a while, but the people of the U.S. have no more appetite for foreign intervention. Afghanistan was a complete disaster, an unmitigated catastrophe, especially when the recent pull under the Biden administration. I don't want to make it political. I'm just saying that the appetite that Americans have for, if there is something that's going to happen, and I know this is a little adjacent to things that you think about in the work you do, could you imagine that the United States would come to the defense of Taiwan?
I would hope so. As an American, like, I know, we have a long history of fuckery. You can Google, you can see. Go on Wikipedia, you can see. But just out of principle and the relationship that we've had with Taiwan, and just out of principle of what China's doing to the world. When I say China, I don't mean Chinese people. I mean
for
CCP.
sure.
You got to be careful about it. Some people, So, but just what they've done to the world, to the economy. I know we can't talk about the virus of unspecified origin, but like, they're on a hook for a lot of shit. So for us, it's like, just out of principle, do you really want those guys to take over this island, the one place in the entire planet that's suitable for growing microchips? Not growing, but you know what I mean? Because it's about the moisture and the condensation. It's like, this place is perfect. And not only that, but in terms of trade routes, you really want to give that up? But not only that, but the people here are legitimately like good people. They love American people. My cousin during the Korean War was stationed here back in the 60s, 50s, 60s. Shit, I don't know. I think it's 50 to 60, but he was stationed here during that time. And he was like, this place is fucking awesome. Even then, he really had like an affinity for the people and thought they were really genuinely good people. So I would say, just out of principle, like.
It's funny, I think we Americans thought, oh, well, we'll have this, everybody loves neoliberal, but we'll have this order, we'll have a capitalist system, and that will liberalize China. But in fact, it almost did exactly the opposite. It brought in speech controls, it brought in kind of boycotts, or I'm thinking about the NFL or sports leagues, I'm thinking about, none of the prognostications came to be true about China becoming more liberal, the CCP becoming more liberal. In fact, we hardened our attitudes and demeaned our respect for free speech for either the pursuit of the dollar, et cetera. And I've seen a wholesale failure on American leadership to stand up to that. I don't know. I'm not optimistic, as Reed will tell you. I'm not optimistic about the future because I do see us not tackling problems. I do see us not standing up to thugs. I mean, we don't even stand up to the thugs in our own country who want to, quote unquote, transition little kids. I mean, we don't even the lowest possible hanging fruit. Don't mutilate the genitals of children. We're afraid of a bunch of people online who have, I mean, it's just this just wholesale cowardice.
Well, I'm sure you've heard the whole Yuri Bezmenov speech,
Yes,
right?
correct.
Like it's 100%. It's the result of demoralization. My generation were one of the first ones. Like it's very clear what is going on.
Yeah.
But like he said, like by the time it's too late, they'll be welcome and receiving with open arms.
Yeah.
So I honestly, I feel kind of hopeless because I'm like, I see people trying to snap out of it, and the backlash, at least on the outside looking in, doesn't seem as bad as it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It seems like people are slowly starting to see the light.
I think that's true. That's certainly true. And this, and in addition, not only is the backlash bad, but there's just the gaslighting is now beginning. Oh, I never believed that, or it's just
Hindsight.
Yeah, it's unprecedented. Oh, I never. So, what do you think? If you were gonna, are you optimistic about the future of Taiwan? Are you pessimistic, or what?
I am optimistic, but also practical. I mean, the world, it's been a while since we had a war. And if you look, the whole thing was every 88 years, there's like a world conflict. That whole thing is like, okay, it's about time. So maybe it happens. And if it does, okay.
And when you say that, you're talking about U.S., China, or what are you talking about Taiwan?
We talking about war, or we're talking about?
No, what are you talking about? Like, are you optimistic about Taiwan? Do you think there's going to be a global conflict?
I think that, I hope there's not a global conflict.
Of course.
But if it happens, I wouldn't be surprised. Just because there's so many tensions, there's so many economies who are suffering, and when people get desperate, they do desperate things.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening in China right now. China is fucked.
In terms of what?
Bad. Their housing crisis. I don't know what they've been showing on the news in the States, and I know from what I've seen, is like they paint China as like this big ultimate powerhouse, this big bad guy, but they are fucked. Bad. They are desperate right now. And people who are desperate do desperate things.
They're desperate what? Economically?
Economically, militarily?
Militarily, yeah.
Military.
Well, you haven't been speaking English.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Like when I watch, when I go on like Chinese websites, go on Chinese Twitter, which is its own separate thing, and you see what's going on, like those people are suffering. And that might, again, I'm only speaking out of my ass here a little bit. That might mean that maybe the people will stand up and revolt, maybe. But what I see is that the government right now is slowly losing control of its people. And
Really?
yeah. People because they have to understand they've been under so much pressure in terms of, okay, you have the social credit system, you have compelled speech and controlled speech.
Right.
And what happened during what was that period? I forgot the official name, but when they locked people in their houses and wouldn't let them go out.
Oh, yeah.
People were protesting, like literally like protesting on the street, like, fuck it. Like, you guys are fucking up. That was like an unprecedented moment in history, and I guess in modern history for China. So there's these little cracks that are coming through. And what I see is that, at least from what I've seen, is that China is slowly losing grip. I mean, you can't, it's a huge fucking country. There's a lot of people. To try to control that, they've done so well so far, but eventually you're gonna lose your grip on it. So in my opinion, war could come. It likely will come, and that would suck.
And because you think they need an external enemy to maintain control, to focus the people against this threat?
Yes. Just like we've done it before. It's like, okay, that's the enemy over there. It's like, I know we've got the housing crisis, we've got the homeless pandemic, we've got the homeless issue, we've got, people dying in the streets. But right now, we need to unite together to fight those guys, because those guys are threatening our way of life. That's kind of been our SOP for a while. But it's not just it's not just us. It's not just Americans who do it. Other countries do it as well. So that's what I anticipate would happen. And the whole idea of like the narrative for China is that the United States is meddling in our business. Like, I'm China, you're Taiwan. This is a family affair.
Right.
And you are meddling in our business. So in order for us to settle our business, we need to deal with them together.
That's terrifying to me.
Yeah. But it's life. I don't know, maybe I'm too cavalier about it. I'm kind of just like, if it happened,
the people of Taiwan don't think that way. I mean, these are the people with whom I've spoken. I had a massage the other day. Massages here are great. It was like $10 too. And I was with this dude, and we were talking. He was translating for me, and I was asking about the Taiwan-China situation. And there was a man massaging me and a woman massaging her, and he was like 60 something and she was like 60 something, and he gave a very politic answer, and she said, but he doesn't actually believe that. He's only saying that because she's from China, and he doesn't want to cause a rift because they're colleagues. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, I just thought that was really interesting. The other thing is we filmed, Reed and Travis and I, we filmed here at Taipei University. Is that right? New Taipei University. Dude, it was great. No permits, no police, nobody stopped us. You try that in the US.
Yeah, can't do it.
We couldn't even get a permit. You know, the Lido couldn't even get a permit. We just go in, we film right in front of the library, no problem.
I remember we were in the line group. You guys were worried about permits. I was like, when you get here, you'll be fine.
No problem. We
good.
just went there. People came up, talked to us. Everybody was cool.
Yeah.
You know, every time we went to use the restroom, no problem. We just walk in. Oh, you know what I was going to ask you? Do you think one of the reasons that people are so civilized here is because there are TV cameras everywhere?
I thought about that. That might be a reason. That might be, or it might be a factor. But I've heard this opinion, and I don't know if I fully agree with it. They say it's because the Japanese kind of settled society.
That's what I've heard as well when I asked people.
And there's a lot of cultural, because I spent some time in Japan as well, there are a lot of things that cross over. And this is not my words, this is what I've heard, is that the Japanese kind of, I guess, civilized the place and also sorted out the sewage system and the roads.
That's what I heard too. So, you know, without giving any details, where Reed lives, that place is just a huge cesspool. But there are cameras everywhere. There are cameras everywhere, and people still commit social justice on the street. They're mugging people. You walk into the Dunkin' Donuts, there's an armed security guard. You walk into CVS, there's an armed security guard. You walk into a coffee shop across the street, there's an armed security guard. So there are cameras everywhere there, and people still are misbehaving in the most grotesque of ways.
Yeah, that's wild.
But here, there are cameras everywhere, and no one is misbehaving. Oh, and that's the other thing. And right out there, there's a public restroom. There are no doors on the restrooms.
Yeah.
So like you just
go in and do your thing.
It was just fascinating to me.
And usually the guys, like you've been in some places, the urinals like right there in front of the doorway, and people just kind of.
Yeah, there are no urinal dividers.
Yeah.
It's just a different, like, you know, you walk in, that's the other thing. There were no trash baskets here.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy to me.
There's a reason for this, and this is because, I don't know where all you guys have been, but you might see, like, we call them IEs, little aunties, like with the hats, and they go around picking up trash, or they're pushing little buggies with bottles and whatnot.
I haven't seen any. We first night we got here, we saw one Kleenex, and we just sat around and looked at it, but yeah.
Well, you also, this is a fairly affluent part of town, so for the most part, usually at night, they have the aunties come in and they clean the trash. And if you go to like different parts of Taipei, they might be there during the day as well. It's like you just see them with a buggy, and they have their little straw hat and they just pick stuff up.
Because I've been all around Taipei as far as I know, and I haven't seen any trash. It's just astonishingly clean.
But you haven't seen any. You say you haven't seen any waste bins at all, or no? So I think
I've seen very few. I have seen a few. I've seen very few. But you know, I start carrying around, you know, my Coke Zero bottle or whatever. I start carrying around my coffee, and I can't find it. And you know, I'm told that people separate their waste and they carry it around with them.
Yeah.
Tell me about that,
bruh. They have like, okay, when we say separate in the States, it's like, okay, paper, plastic, bottles, and then general trash. For them, it's like you have paper. You have non-wet paper, like things that maybe like had something dripping on it. You have the lids and like if you order takeout, they have the lids and the kind of disposable bowls. Those got to be separated. Chopsticks have to be separated. The actual food needs to be taken out, and it goes in its own thing where it's called 厨余. It's like waste food. That goes in its own thing to become compost. It's like even where we live, we have 7 different bins. It's all for different things.
And these people, that's the crazy thing to me. The crazy thing to me is there are no trash baskets that I've seen, or virtually none, and people carry around their waste and they separate with them and they just bring this bag and they carry it around.
Yeah, because there's no space.
Just like Reed's neighborhood. That's what they do over there too.
But there's no space, so no one's living on top of trash. So you have it's like everyone's hurting for space, especially up north. It's like you have to keep things in order and clean, and otherwise it affects everybody. If you notice, like if you walk down like the streets where they have like all the businesses, the storefronts, and there's just like one collective kind of sidewalk, but everyone cleans like in front of their space.
I've noticed that.
Because it's a communal space. It's like, I need to clean it because, I don't own it. It's not mine, but it's my responsibility.
So that's the other crazy thing. It's like the zoning here is just, there must be no zoning because the place where we eat breakfast every day. Next to it, there's a garage. Next to that, there's a what is there, Travis? There's a there's the coffee place. Next to that, there's a lunch place. Next to that, there's like some machinist shop, and it's all in like one block.
It's all random.
It's the other thing is like when you walk by these places, the smell, like you just get hit by all these different scents and like just this odyssey, this kind of kaleidoscope of it's just crazy to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're living in Taipei, so that's at least from my experience, like being in Taipei is like that. But once you kind of go out, it's a bit different because it's more space. Like things are spread out. But in Taipei, everything goes
Oh,
up.
you know where I was? I was in, I can't even pronounce it, but I was in the middle of Taiwan in this kind of semi-rural place. But it was like a, kind of a city, kind of. There were no sidewalks.
Yeah.
This whole thing was like a massive death trap.
You just walk on the side of the road.
Yeah, I had to take off I have tinnitus in my left ear, so I usually I usually wear headphones over. I had to take off my headphones. I'm completely paranoid of being run over. And while I was there, I saw like accidents. And everybody kept warning me, like, you got to be careful when you walk.
Yes.
You gotta, like, what's up with that?
That is, what was it? About 3-4 years ago, CNN named Taiwan the pedestrian hell. That's accurate. Especially, up north. Because it's just, number one, there's too many people. Number two, the idea of the right of way is kind of a suggestion.
Yeah, I
You know what I
noticed
mean?
that.
I know there's crosswalks and there's a little there's a reason why the man starts running. He doesn't start. You know what I mean? Just because there's too many people. There's a lot of people and people can't be bothered to pay attention to you, to put it bluntly. Now, they've been trying to change that, and now there's the idea of the concept of the right-of-way is becoming like, hey, that should be the standard. And even then, you have people, I think it was like about 6 months ago, there was an incident where people who were exercising the right-of-way would dance on the crosswalk with a 30-second just to show, like, hey, you cannot hit me, because if you hit me, I'm going to sue you. They have a rule that if you're on the what's called bamashi, the zebra line, as long as you're on the zebra line, if you get hit, you can sue. But if you're even 1 foot off the zebra line, they can sue you. So they kind of changed it up a bit to give pedestrians more rights. It's like, no, when it's time to walk or they walk, the cars have to yield right of way. And so it's kind of gone a little bit extreme where people will deliberately like just stop and look at their phone in the middle of the street until it's time to go.
Yeah, I was told repeatedly not to look at my phone and when I was in this part of Taiwan, it was terrifying to me. I was terrified walking down the street. I literally was trying to walk and even then the mopeds were.
Yep, scooters are, bro. The chances of you getting hit by a car are very slim because at least because I drive and I've seen how most people drive. Usually that's okay because they have a pretty decent depth of field. But on the scooters, it's tunnel vision.
That's what
they're
I
either
noticed.
looking down or if they're looking at their phone, they're not looking at anyone.
Oh, and what's up with this whole mask thing? Like, why are everybody constantly? Why is what do you say, Travis? About 20%, 25% of the people?
Yeah,
at least 20%, 25, maybe even 30% of people. Why are these people wearing masks? What's up with that?
I will give you a Chinese phrase. Actually, it's Taiwanese. It's called 台湾人很怕死. It means Taiwanese people are really afraid of death. And it's because of SARS. When SARS went down, there was so much panic and so many things got shut down that culture, then I think at that time there were not the millennials who were before, the boomers. The boomers lived through that period of time. So as a result of that, people were terrified. It's like anytime you have even the slightest cough, wear a mask. Cough. If you have the slightest cough, wear a mask. If your nose is running, wear a mask because we don't want to repeat what happened back then. So when COVID came around, because Taiwan was the first ones to tell people like, yo, China's got shit going on, you might want to go investigate. And people didn't believe them at the time. They were telling the WHO, yo, there's something going on there. Taiwanese people were already wearing masks. Because my mom came here right when COVID started to kick off here.
Yeah.
And she was like, why is everyone wearing masks? And by the time she got back on the plane to go home, she was wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And getting off, and people were like, why are you wearing a mask? So it's just, that's the culture.
Well, that's the other thing. People wear a mask when they're walking down the street alone in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Or sitting on the bench in that park out there. I see people wearing masks, like literally all are in there. Like, that's just.
It's just culture. Oh, obviously, high concentration of people is like, you never know when someone's gonna walk near you, but the main thing is SARS really changed that quite a bit. So even before COVID, the culture is if you have the slightest bit of cough or you don't feel well, wear a mask because you never know.
Yeah. Have you been following anything that's been going on in the U.S. or are you just Taiwan-centric right now?
I've been following a little bit. just because we've been doing a bit of content on like the whole Fannie Willis thing, and of course, I
Yeah.
think Trump's going to be the front runner, but not too deep. So I kind of know like the surface level what's been going on.
I mean, how do you feel about what's happening to the country now?
I think it's really, really sad. And I've been on the outside looking in and watching it, like, you know what I mean? It's like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
What is sad to you about it? What strikes you as sad?
Because I've traveled quite a bit, having been a DJ and gone to different parts of the world and see how people see Americans when you pull that passport and the reaction, and then to watch that having changed to now we're a joke. But I think just watching how we used to be, I guess, this beacon of hope in the Western world, and I guess I'm getting a little bit idealistic, but the whole idea was like, come to this place, and if you work hard and you struggle, regardless of who you are, you have a chance to make something of yourself and be prosperous. And now it seems like everyone is trying to fight each other. I mean, I guess politically was for the most part liberal Democrat. Like I made my first career was DJing and playing in gay and lesbian clubs. And now I look at even the people who I came up with in that community, it's like, yo, what are y'all doing? Like, what is going on? Like, yeah, you guys finally have a leg up, but now you're becoming the very people that used to oppress you. You're becoming the oppressor. So it's really sad to watch socially, especially what's going on. And that's how we ended up being turned on to your videos, because we were like, bro, this is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it, it just fills me with despair. Like I honestly don't want to go back.
I can understand that.
I'm concerned about the acrimony. I'm concerned about the lies. I'm concerned about the idea that the whole craziness of the far left, the craziness of the far right in a different kind of a way. I'm just concerned about, I don't know. So I was wondering about your perspective as an outsider, what you see happening, and you share those concerns.
I'm very, very, very concerned. That's part of the reason why I was trying to convince my mother to move here.
Yeah.
And my sister lives in Atlanta, and even she, she's part of the alphabet community, and she's like, dude, these people are tripping. She's in Atlanta, and one of the most liberal cities like in the South, and even she is like, what is going on? Like things aren't like what they used to be. So I am concerned, but my concern is that we'll turn on each other, not that someone else from the outside.
That's also my concern. And I don't see anybody speaking honestly about homelessness, about fentanyl. I was just with a buddy of mine at lunch, and he was telling me that there's this thing called the fentanyl lean. It's just fascinating to me. I didn't even know it had a term, but when you're leaning over, when you see these people leaning over, evidently it's from, I mean, what do I know? But it's from fentanyl. And there are so many people who are just kind of zombified. And when we go around, we see this, and I'm just like, the tent camping, the homelessness, the drug addiction, I've probably less oxy now and more fentanyl. And I don't see anybody speaking honestly about it. I don't even see anybody really. Yeah, totally.
Here it's very, like the general consensus is, it's just trying to get in the revenge for the opium wars.
Oh, you think so? Yeah. I mean, my buddy Michael Schellenberger ran for governor against Newsom, and Newsom won. I mean, I'm not even going to tell you what I think of Newsom, but he was trying to bring attention, like in his book, San Francisco. Like, so I see very few people on a national stage actually having an honest conversation about.
That's weird because I guess there's people who will benefit financially from it, from the treatment aspect of it, but it's, from what I can see, what I've seen on Twitter and online, is just destroying communities.
Yeah, I know.
Completely destroying lives, and I don't understand why it's not. When it comes to debate time, when it comes to issues you want to put your hat on, like, why wouldn't that be one of the first?
Yeah, and it's crazy. It's kind of like people aren't having conversations. We were in London for I think 3 or 4 months last year. People aren't having honest conversations about immigration, not even about illegal immigration. People aren't having, and the people who are having honest conversations about, that's the other thing, the failure to secure the southern border is completely insane to me.
Yeah.
Completely insane, like deranged level crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't see, I just don't know. I don't know how we're gonna that should be something that literally everybody can agree upon.
Like baseline.
Immigration, great, wonderful. Let's get more people in here. Let's find people who want to work and follow the law. Let's take everybody in, everybody's happy. But there's just so many individual discrete instances of insanity, which seems to have taken over large groups and kind of spread throughout the population. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to get out of these problems. The debt is now $34 trillion and it's increasing every what is it, like every 60 days by $1 trillion. Don't quote me on that, but something like that. And then they just found people coming over from the southern border who are evidently, who knows if it's true, but Iranians. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I would love to not to sit here and be this gloom and doom, but I just don't know, man.
And you're in it. Like, I'm on the outside, and I'm like, man, I'm concerned. But at the same time, the American optimist in me is like, yeah, but we'll figure it out, right?
Well, yeah,
maybe.
No, yeah, I mean, but then I see like all the venerable institutions, like Scientific American is completely ideologically corrupt. It's all of the American academies are corrupt. The peer review process is corrupt.
Right.
Every time someone points out the corruption, they're the bad person, as opposed to like, oh, geez, maybe we have a problem. Maybe we have an ideological leaning. Maybe we can't. It's less likely to get published something that doesn't comport with the narrative. Like you just go after the people who are calling out the corruption rather than saying, let's take an honest look and see if there is corruption here. The plagiarism, we're right about at the beginning of a plagiarism scandal. So I don't know how we're going to get out of these things. But then again, I think to myself, I think you're right. I do have some American optimism, but I don't want to be Pollyanna about it. Like, I want my optimism to be rooted in some kind of reality.
Right.
I mean, I guess if there's a good thing, I think a lot of people who are on traditional different sides of the coin, like atheists and Christians, are now coming together to fight for some basics of civilization against,
which is a good thing,
against the crazy people. Yeah. But I don't, and you know, from Great Britain now, a lot of the Tavistock stuff, the WPATH stuff, a lot of this stuff is being exposed now. But even with this, I don't know. I mean, what are reasons to be optimistic? I don't know, as an outsider.
Well, first of all, I look at America as a giant social experiment. Like, for all intents and purposes, what I see is like, we really shouldn't exist. I mean, we have different people come from all different places, different languages, different cultures come together, and somehow we managed to, up until now, I guess, to coexist. And we've done it for quite some time now. And we've been, like, I guess, an inspiration for many different countries around the world. And right now, I think this is the optimist speaking. It's like, we have some problems. We have some in-house issues that we need to work out. So I would like to think that this is just a momentary.
I hope so.
I mean? It's been what? Okay, at least from what I've seen, it's been like a 15-year downward spiral from what I can see.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. So when Reed and I were in Parliament in London with a friend of mine, Lawrence Fox, and somebody we didn't even know walked up to us and said, I mean, I never even saw this person. She was with the House of Commons or Lords, who knows? I don't have any idea. But she was a politician, and she walked up to us. She heard me speak or Reed speak, and she said, totally out of the blue, I literally never saw this woman before in my whole life. She said, there was a time when an American president's word meant something, no more. And she walked away. And I have to tell you, I am embarrassed by the Trump-Biden runoff. I am embarrassed as an American. Yeah. I am embarrassed when I go around the world that these two people, of all the people, these are the people we've chosen. That's an embarrassment.
And I think what maybe many people don't understand is we, as being expats or traveling, we're on the hook for it. People ask us, hey, what's going on with you guys? Like, we're the ones who have to answer for what our elected officials are doing. Like, we're always on the hook for it. I have to deal with that all the time anytime I'm in their taxes.
You do?
Yeah, they're like, hey, what's going on with you Americans? How come you guys can't get your shit together, basically? It's like they're asking me what's going on with my country, even though I haven't been there, because we're on the hook for it. It's like, you guys used to be the shit, and now you're kind of...
Yeah, I don't, and I never know how to answer that. And I see what's happening with Western Europe and Great Britain, and especially with the immigration thing. And I see the massive numbers of illegal migrants and the lack of cultural sovereignty. And I see this, and I'm, in one sense to me, I want to say, well, you brought this on yourself. You have no one to blame but yourself. But the same argument has to be made of us. Like, when you're in a democracy, you're held responsible for the policies. I mean, if you want to know who's responsible, look in the mirror. Like, you're responsible. I'm responsible for that, right? So I can't pawn that off on someone else.
Right.
And so, I've been looking for reasons to be optimistic. But the other thing is, to be very blunt with you, everywhere we travel, I'm always asking Reed, why can't we have nice things too? Why can't we have restaurants? When you go to, if a restroom is even open, like when I used to live in Portland, Oregon, all the restrooms, they're either closed or they have these metal toilets with metal, and there's no, here, the nets on the basketball, there's no nets in the basketball.
Right.
They're metal, they're like designed so that someone would take a sledgehammer and endure them. And people go in there still, they commit social justice, they take sledgehammers, they smash the thing, there's graffiti, they take, they do literally everything they can to destroy the commons. Everything.
And this is in Oregon?
Yeah, so that's the other thing I should stress. This is a regional thing.
Okay.
Like, I don't think you find this in West Virginia. I don't think you find this. I think you find this. It's Seattle would be Los Angeles.
Seattle, really?
Yeah.
I've always had this idea in my head that Seattle was like one of the most liberal, open-minded, safe cities.
15 or 20 years ago, that was the case.
And now it's changed.
Oh, yeah. And that's not to say, even then it's localized, but I just don't see people having honest conversations about some of the problems we're facing. And when we go around, I'm always like looking, oh wow, the subway is clean. And sometimes we go in the subway and they just have paper. The ads are in with paper. There's no plastic laminate.
Oh yeah.
And that's like, nobody just rips them off.
No.
Yeah.
Because that's not polite. Like that's pretty much the attitude. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
That's the general attitude.
Yeah. So you see yourself living here for the rest of your life?
Yeah, especially now that I'm a dual national. So I guess a part of me and my identity is Taiwanese. My kid is half Taiwanese. So I'm convincing my mother to move here as well. Is I see the majority of my life being lived out here. That could change. War might change that. I don't know. But as far as me going back to the States and living, especially hearing, I've been on the outside looking in thinking, okay, maybe it's just being sensationalized. And, obviously the algorithm is sending me things based on what I click on. Sure. But even based on what you're telling me, it's like, we're about to hit rock bottom. So I don't want to raise my kid in that type of environment. That's not something, I never thought I would say that. I never thought I would say I don't want to raise my kid in an American society.
Yeah, I never thought I'd say it either. But again, I do think it's hyper-localized. When we were in Florida, I didn't see any of that. I mean, unless I was going to the wrong places, I didn't see none of it. But yet I see whole cities just consumed by madness.
Oh, maybe it's just the minority. Maybe it's just small things being magnified. I really don't know. I mean, the last time I went to the States, I was in Dallas. I didn't go anywhere else. So, and Dallas seemed pretty cool for the most part, but there was definitely tension. Yeah. People were definitely concerned.
Oh, they were?
Yeah. I was in what's called the DFW Metroplex, so Dallas-Fort Worth. And just, meeting up with friends and talking to people, because I was curious, like, hey, is it really as bad as what I see like on TV? And then like, people were concerned, like it's hard to find a job, and there's
economic concern.
Economically concerned. As far as safety, I mean, there's definitely a big difference. I'm sure you'll notice when you go back, is like you can't, even in a place that's generally safe in the States, it's not the same as being here. You still can't be out walking around at night. So you're hyper, every time I go back, I'm hyper aware of that. I have to switch how I move, how I walk, what I wear, just because, like you said, like here, no one's gonna tear off a piece of paper, being stuck to the wall.
Yeah, just real quick, because I've told the story before, but when I was in New York, I was amazed how many people jumped the subway, the turnstiles. Oh. Like, I was amazed by that. And I thought, well, geez, maybe it's just this one stop because there are no cameras or something, so people know. But it was at all I was just flabbergasted by how many. And so I talked to a buddy of mine when he was in London, Andrew Doyle. I'm like, dude, I cannot believe how many people were jumping the turnstiles.
Wow.
And he said, I've been in London for, 40-something years, but I've never seen a single person jump the turnstile. I would bet you would not see a single person jump the turnstile.
It'd make national news. For sure.
Make national news.
I'll tell you a big story that happened around Chinese New Year. Around Chinese New Year, it's a big celebration. It's pretty much like their version of Christmas. And people do fireworks on Chinese New Year's Eve. And a bunch of kids decided that they would take some fireworks and go to the park on a porta potty and light it up. I've done shit like that when I was a kid. Yeah. These kids make national news for being a public nuisance. They covered that story for 3 days. Played the video back in slow motion and dissed these kids bad because they misbehaved. Now, back home, that would just be kids, they're being kids. But here, it's like, no, you don't do that. They take it really, really seriously. So something like that would definitely make national news.
So it's interesting in that sense. not to wax philosophical, but the shame is a mechanism to keep people in place.
Oh, yes. That's why they have what's called mianzi, or face culture, right? We talk about saving face. Face culture is very, very big, not only in Japanese culture, but in Chinese and Taiwanese culture as well. So the fact...
Tell me about that. What is that?
So the idea of face is not only being proper, but not bringing shame or embarrassment to not just yourself or your family, but to you as well. Like, for example, if we go out in public and we meet this guy and I'm the one who brought you out, it's my obligation to introduce you not as just Peter Boghossian, but as a university professor from blah, 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 who's done this, and this, Peter Boghossian. If I don't do that, you lose face. I make you look bad. So that might mess up our entire friendship. And that is in every aspect of life. You ever notice how when you go to 7-Eleven or Family Mart, when they give you the money?
I've never seen more 7-Elevens in my life than here, but yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. But when you go there, when they give you the money, they kind of do like there's always like a slight bow.
Yes, I noticed that. They
give you face.
The two hands.
They know you worked hard for that money, and you didn't come about it very easily, so out of respect, it's like, okay, here's your money. And they give it with two hands as well. It's about face.
Yeah, I
face
noticed
culture.
that. Now, when I introduced that guy over there with the shirt that says masturbation, no one does it better. That's how
I just noticed that.
Did you notice that? That's how I'm going to introduce him. So instead of, university professor, I'm like, one who meets obstacles. He masturbates hard. Masturbation, no one does it better. This is my buddy. That's how I'm going to start introducing him.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what reaction that gets. Yeah, so it is funny. Reed described this place as very civilized, and I think that accords with my perceptions of it. And that's what makes it additionally heartbreaking to think about all the stress externally that they're facing from the Chinese. So now I know I'm not going to get into China. I know my
Don't. I spent
I know it's over.
3 years. I'm not 3 years. Sorry, 3 months there, and the people are nice, but you're not missing much. At least
what do I need to go to China for? I mean, they were going to come for me anyway. They're going to get in the list. They're going to get
Your
in the
account
line.
makes sure you have two-factor authentication on everything. Everything.
Yeah, I think I do, and I have like 40-level passwords. There's only freaking passwords.
Don't click on any links that people send you.
Yeah.
Nah, don't do it.
Yeah, because the Chinese are coming for me.
They're coming. They're coming.
Yeah. The Chinese and the people who want to mutilate children's genitals. So you're in good camp. You guys are good bedfellows. That's great. Awesome. Anything? Where can people find you? Where?
I guess on our YouTube channel, we have our English name is like Good Bike Mob, like just G-O-D, because it's in Chinese, right?
Yeah.
But my channel, I do pretty much English and Chinese bilingual commentary on stuff that's going on in America, stuff that's going on in Taiwan. Socials, Instagram, just put Sona Eyambe.
Spell that out for us, please.
Okay, S-O-N-A, my first name, and then Eyambe is E-Y-A-M-B-E.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What do people think about wokeness here, and do you see it anywhere?
It is growing, and that was part of the reason, that's part of the growing of woke culture is part of the reason why we stumbled upon you, is because my partner, his name is Awe, he was talking about, like, yo, on these message boards, people are talking about what's called 正视正确, which is Chinese for PC culture, which is another term for woke. Because the culture is like, if you're fat, we call you the fat guy over there. Or even me, it's like, I'm not Sona, I'm the black guy. Like, the black guy over there. It's like, and now it's changed to like, the guy with dark skin color. You have to say it like that. And even in workplaces, in terms of over-assertion of women's rights and in certain situations, even forcing guys to go through menstrual simulation periods to understand, to have empathy.
Wait, what? What is it? Menstrual simulation?
So it started in Japan. They have like a device they created called the perionoid. Because in Japan, we're gonna start in Japan and come to Taiwan. So in Japan, women are allowed, I think, a certain amount of days of menstrual leave, but it's unpaid. And they think that's not fair. So they came up with a device called the perionoid, which guys can strap on to this area here, and it will randomly create cramps for them to understand what women are going through.
I'm gonna get Reed one of those. I'm gonna get Reed one of those.
So things, and because we do have a lot of influences from Korea and Japan. And Korea, I think, is another one that they said the woke culture is really like, it's really insane. So there's been like this growing. We had our own version of Me Too about 6 months ago. And I know you talked to Fan, right? She's the one who's been covering it. She's very on the left, but she's very at odds with the left at this moment because she thinks things are getting out of hand. So woke culture is here, but it's not in your face here. It's very subtle. It's very much like, I'm trying to think of an example. It's like no one's gonna force you or say my pronouns are this. What they're gonna do is if you don't address them by their pronouns, because of face, right? They just might never talk to you again. So it's not like you will lose your job or get fired or anything like that. It's very much the very basic, like maybe how we were in the 90s, I guess, where it's just like, okay, call me African American rather than black or a person of color, right? It changes every couple of years. So it's things like that, but even there's been pushback. And so during the election, you had like a Trump type character who came about and he got a lot of support at the time. And people were kind of worried just because he was the antithesis of what people on the political left in Taiwan were offering. So it's here, but it's not like in America. And that was part of the reason why we did our series, was to make people aware. It's like, look, this is how bad it's gotten in America. Don't go in that direction. So be aware where it could go. Because American culture tends to influence a lot of Taiwanese culture. A lot of Taiwanese locals tend to look up, or at least until recently tend to look up to
And we
America.
just have no shame that this is a American cultural export. It's just so shameful that we're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people willing to copy and paste. That's the thing, without question.
Yeah.
So that was what we did. Was like, hey, you should be careful, what you copy and paste.
Yeah. Can you think of ways to discourage that from spreading that critical social justice, that wokeness?
In my opinion, I would say is you got to question everything. Just because someone tells you that something is, don't just take it at face value. And I say that because I'm very well aware of how American culture is perceived here. A lot of things is like, well, American does it, so it must be good. You know what I mean? Oh, they do it, so it must be. It's just copy paste. Just like literally, like there's a lot of things that have been like that. So it's like, hey, it's good that you might, I guess have an affinity for a culture, but look at where we went wrong and learn from that,
Right,
and maybe go in a different direction. And that was kind of the whole objective with that series that we did, was to show is like, yeah, we get that maybe the intent of PC culture or woke culture was just to have basic human respect for everyone. But the thing is sometimes people are assholes, and they can abuse that and take it in the wrong direction. And the result is you make my people look bad. You make people in the LGBTQ community look bad, because those are the ones who are making the most noise. And what ends up happening is you have an increase in racism and bigotry as a result of what you see. And it's bad. I look at stuff like that, I'm like, oh man, because just like I have to answer for American fuck-ups, I have to answer for the black fuck-ups all the time. So it's the same thing. So for me, it's like, don't just take everything at face value. I know it's hard, but question everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it.
Cool.